Hey everyone, welcome to the Dog and Bandits. I'm Orrin Phillips, and today we have a fantastic episode. We have returning guests, and we have a brand new guest. So who are they? Well, returning guest is the great Terry Kavanagh. You know, one of my favorites. He is here with us, along with a very amazing new talent, Vince Sunico. He is working together with Terry for a project for 24/7 Comics called Heroes Be Damned. It's a Kickstarter project. We're gonna have the links in the descriptions when we do our posts. Everything about this sounds amazing. The world Vince has created is astounding. His art is impeccable. I mean, I'm looking through this project and I'm just so overwhelmed by how good it is. I want you guys to back it, of course, but let's hear the story about how this all came together. Here is Terry and Vince. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Hey, Lauren,
Hello, hello.
So you guys are working on an awesome Kickstarter, Heroes Be Damned. Vince, I'll start with you. How did you first get involved with this project?
Actually, it's a project I've been working for many years. Something I was going to kickstart myself for the whole bit. And it was actually, I got a message from Carl Choi,
Okay.
who had this company called 24/7 Comics.
Mhm.
So he just messaged me through Instagram. He's been like, he was saying that people are saying, hey, check this guy's stuff, blah, blah, blah. And when he looked at my stuff on Instagram, he gave me a message and he just asked, like, who's this character?
Mhm.
And it just kind of started from there.
And what was it about this project that really hooked you in that you kept building and building on it?
Uh, I, it was like the character, but just building a story around him.
Mhm.
Originally, it was more if you've seen the design of the character, it has the mask and the
Right.
staples,
Mhm.
and that's something I created like years ago. But it was more like an offshoot character.
Mhm.
But it was something about him, like, hey, there's something about him. And I had another story that kind of like merged them all together, and it was actually like based on a Shaolin monk.
Okay.
And I kind of merged them together as I was building the story with it.
Is it one of those things where you see the character evolving in your mind as every issue, as every panel goes along, that it changes just a little bit?
Oh yeah. Like even if Terry knows, like, yeah, when you create something, you just kind of like your mind, it just keeps going. Of course, there's like a limit, but you want to keep with the theme and the story itself.
Mhm.
So with the character, yeah, like there are moments where I'm like, either he's gonna do this or he's gonna do that, making sure that stays within the path.
Right. And Terry, how did you get involved?
uh, I was at a convention in San Francisco, and Jay Lee was having a panel, and
Mhm.
I went there to heckle him. And I successfully heckled him. And then Carl Choi followed me out of the panel and asked to interview me. And I did a short little interview with him in the hall, and then we stayed in contact. And then he asked if I'd be interested in doing some editing for them. I said, obviously, it would depend on the product. He sent me this, and I was blown away for a number of reasons. I was wary at first because Carl said it was Vince was the writer artist on it. And I have enough experience in the industry that I know, with rare exceptions like, Alan Davis and Walt Simonson and John Byrne, writer
Mhm.
artist is a dangerous combination because the writer in them can take shortcuts that they want the artist to make up for, and they can do it vice versa as well.
Right.
That is not the case with Vince at all. There were no shortcuts here once whatsoever.
Thanks,
And I
Terry.
was I was saying this earlier on something else with Vince, and recently we have this Unhinged with Terry Kavanagh podcast going, and I think it was Eric Larson, it might have been Howard Chaykin on there saying, because both of them are writer artists, saying that they get in battles with themselves where the writer in them will put something down, and then the artist will say, nope, not doing that, not going to draw that. And then it gets ugly between them.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned for a second ago that it hooked you as soon as you read the script, as soon as you read about the books. What is it that you were looking for in a project to bring you back?
Uh, for me, it had to be something. Okay, I'm superhero based, so mostly that's what interests me. And there is a hero and villain element to this, although it's unique and different than what we've seen before.
Mhm.
Also, Vince had built an entire world. By the time I got involved, he really had the first three issues done, written and drawn. I made a couple of suggestions, a title suggestion, and a few scenes maybe to add along the way because he wanted it to be a mystery, and suggested throwing in some suspects, etc.
Mhm.
But I wanted to be part of that world building. It was a world that sucked me in right away. And he was telling a story that was high octane energy all the way, but really, really, really character based. And that's what always is going to work best for me. I think really any story is character based. Doesn't matter how good your situation or your plot is. If the audience doesn't care about the characters, they're not going to care about the story.
Very true.
And Vince, for you, how do you blueprint a character? Where do you begin? Is it a name? Is it an appearance, an ability, a personality characteristic? Where do you build up from?
Uh, it, it's really like it's definitely a mix of everything, really. Everything you just mentioned is like, yeah, you either start from like the look maybe, or just some personality or a situation. Because when putting this story together, it was like a hodgepodge of just many things with the character.
Right.
So again, with the damn character, it was basically starting with his face, but then it just kind of built from there. Like what I was telling Terry earlier, like or before, is like the character did talk before,
Right.
but here, like, but I took that away. I figured, no, let's not make him talk, and it just added more to the character
Absolutely.
as it started to develop the story. Like, oh, having him not talk is like, it was tough, but also it just gave more story and character to it.
And it allows the audience to bring whatever thoughts they
Yeah,
think are going on in his head to it. And in some way, it makes him more accessible or approachable.
Mhm.
yeah,
And I will say to what you asked Vince earlier about how a character, a story develops. I was just having this conversation yesterday with another writer I'm working with who's basically a beginning writer in comic books, and he wanted to know how publishers would react to changes from the pitch stage to the actual final product because he's worked in Hollywood before, and that's problematic if you give a pitch and then you change. In my mind, as an editor, it should change as you tell the story. The story should be alive.
Mhm.
The
yeah.
creators should be nimble enough to follow where the story and characters want to take them and not be locked into some words they wrote a year ago
Right.
about something. They should make sure they can do what's best for the story and the characters.
And that's
Very
Vince,
true.
that's what I wanted to ask you is when you started this, did you have a beginning and an end point in mind, or did you have a beginning and then you just wanted to see where things are going to go and hit a natural conclusion at some point?
Well, interesting about that when what Terry mentioned earlier is like there was a world built around the character
Mhm.
from the beginning, and I literally had him from the beginning, the day his parents met
Right.
to the day he in supposedly end time, you could say.
Mhm.
So I had this whole world built. And then working with 24/7, you got to keep in mind because like I had all these stories laid out and issues,
Mhm.
but they only wanted 6 issues. So there, how do you condense all that into 6 issues? So
Right.
with this one in particular, I just kind of like in the story itself, he's actually going to different worlds. So in this one, he's actually like in this different world, you can say. So it kind
Mhm.
of kind of fits in a way.
You mentioned something interesting, and Terry, I want to ask your opinion on this too. When you're given parameters of 6 issues, how do you sort of put a story together that you get out everything that you want, but you're not overwhelming the readers with so much stuff that they're like, well, what's going on here? How do you sort of find that balance?
Well, first and foremost, you should go into it creating a story that is 6 issues long, if that's the parameters, not taking a story that is only 2 issues and expanding it out to 6 issues. And I think what Vince probably successfully did, he may have had 1,000 issues planned, but he got it down to, he didn't take all of those elements and squeeze them in and
Mhm.
overwhelm the readers. He just picked one part of the story to
Yeah.
tell in these first 6 issues. And it can go the opposite way. as much as I'm loath to bring this up, when you talk about the Clone Saga, when we originally pitched the Clone Saga and then we can get this out of the way, we never have to talk about it again. When it was originally pitched, there were 4 Spider-Man titles, and it was going to go 3 months. It was going to be 12 issues. And then what happened is sales and marketing came to us and said, you've increased sales so significantly, you have to keep dragging they didn't use those words, but you have to keep the story going. So we took what was a very tightly outlined story with a beginning, middle, and an end, and just dragged out the middle
Yep.
for way too long to make it a good story.
Right.
That's my apology.
Yeah.
It always comes back to the Clone Saga.
It always
Clone
does.
Saga.
What has your guys' relationship been like as far as bouncing ideas off of each other, learning each other's styles? How has that been going?
It's been great working with Terry. Like, when he says he had a suggestion, they're like great suggestions.
Mhm.
He definitely makes me like definitely think outside the box a bit more, or he definitely helps like refine the story even better, I find. But
Right.
it's been great so far.
Well, and for me, there are difficult creators to work with who are resistant to suggestions or hear any kind of critique as you saying their baby is ugly. Which is not the case. And it's never been my style as an editor, particularly to bully the creators. I did have that ability when I was working at Marvel because, Namor, for instance, that I was editing, I could say to a creator, no, you can't do this with Namor. I couldn't do that in this case.
Right.
It's creator owned. And so it's Vince's character and story. And all I could really do is make suggestions that I hoped would improve the story. And he's been wide open to everything. That doesn't mean, he agreed with everything I said. But so far, he's taken little tiny suggestions I've made and added, really filled out the story very much.
Vince, for you, doing something like this, it takes some bravery because you're putting your story out there, you're putting your art out there.
Yeah.
What was the point that you sort of felt for yourself, like, okay, I'm confident what I'm doing, I know I can do this, and you just said, let me just go all the way with all this?
Yeah, honestly, like for years I was always just drawing all the time, obviously.
Mhm.
But I knew nothing about storytelling or writing at all. But as time goes on, he says like I just wanted something out there for sure.
Mhm.
And that's when the character's like maybe I can leave something behind of something that I created. So the character, the Dan, was something where like well, I took the effort or just that extra mile to learn storytelling better. But I mean, it took a lot, of course, but
Mhm.
it got to that point where I'm just like getting more confident because like when doing the writing and the storytelling as well with the artwork, it just started to come all together and it just came out like, yeah, this is looking good. I like it.
When I first got involved, it did not show at all, Vince, that you didn't have storytelling experience. It was as I talked to Carl, as I talked to you, as we've done these kind of interviews, that I learned that really Carl found you as, and this is a new phrase that I wasn't aware of, a con artist, an artist who does work at cons and sells those pieces. I love the term, so I'm going
I
to use
like
it
that one.
now whenever I can. And so I was curious. I said to Carl, well, how did you know that he was going to be able to do sequential storytelling? Over the decades in my career, I've had people come up with portfolios at conventions and show me those beautiful illustrations, but they're not telling a story. So I don't know if they can do that in this medium at all. And what Carl pointed to, he sort of took me to to Vince's Instagram page, and he showed they were just sort of headshots, whatever, but they captured story. There was so much information being conveyed by the either the body language or the facial expression that was what gave Carl enough faith to say, well, okay, let's try and do this. And I'm sure you had done by then you had been doing some sequential work on this,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did stuff like for other people, like independent projects the whole bit.
Okay.
Um, but then I'm learning as I go type thing. But
Mhm.
yeah, when talking more about like, it's about the expressions in the face and so forth, and again, just learning more about like how the story is being told within comic books.
Mhm.
And then yeah, the fact that Carl just like you can say taking a big chance. It's like
Yeah, because he wasn't seeing those sequential moments.
yeah,
He was just seeing them in the. You still created moments, even though they were just single images. You still
yeah.
created moments, so that spoke to that. And when you say that you're still learning as you go, all all of us should
Oh,
be learning how to be a better person every day,
yeah,
not just better at our skill sets and talents. And if we're not, if we're done cooking, then let's just get it over with.
yeah. Agreed.
Now, Vince, when you're doing this and you're writing and you're doing the art, are there moments where you say to yourself, you know what, this might be a character I could spin off to do something else with down the line, or this might be an avenue or a story that I can maybe expand on in a different project. Are you thinking about expanding this to different projects and different books, or right now you're just focused on this?
It's funny, like I just focus on just on the story,
Right.
but at the same time, I can see other characters venturing off to do other stuff.
Hmm.
Like every time when you see a character that I put into the book, I'm not just designing the character, like I'm putting a whole backstory, even though they're going to be in one little scene
Hmm.
in a panel, I already have a major backstory already set up.
Right.
Even because it's like again going back with Terry saying, you want those little moments in those small panels or whatever being told, but if the characters are showing up once, it's like got to give them everything they got
Hmm.
until the next one pops up. And again, like when you look at some of the characters, yeah, a lot of them can go off to another book.
Right.
So it's more product for 24 comics.
And having that backstory for every character, even if they only appear in one panel, is what gives them weight. When they speak,
Yeah,
and they're going to be speaking in a different voice than the character in the previous panel or the next panel. And in the first three issues alone, I could point to 20 spots or 20 characters or lines that one character have that I could see in a whole other story coming out
yeah.
of, just because Vince has put that much work in at this stage.
Right. And Terry, for you, as an editor, you come from the world of continuity. You come from a world of there being some guardrails on, like you said, what stories you can't do this. This doesn't match with what's going on in other books. When you're doing editing for a project like this, where there's a possibility for everything. There's no parameters. How do you edit? How do you sort of try to keep things together?
That's part of the fun for me at this stage, really, because uh, a project like this, I don't know how to do this justice. Uh, Vince is doing versions that there are archetypes of in the comic book world.
Hmm.
There's a Batman character, there's a Superman type character, etc. But they're not constrained by the fact that if you did a Batman character in Batman, you're constrained by what he can do, how far he can go, how injured he could be, because you have to keep the entire series going forward.
Right.
Vince can go all in on this character and have them do what's best for their story at that moment, and then let it land where it lands
Right.
and go from there. It's very
Exactly.
different. It's a learning curve for me as well.
That makes sense. Now, Vince, when you have an IP like this, what is your end goal? What do you hope this thing generates itself onto?
It's more like I just want like people just to read it and enjoy it.
Hmm.
That's pretty much it. Like again, I could be making more projects, or maybe this could be the last one, but I like to think that I'm giving, the whole 100%. And then as long as people read it and they're just like, damn, that was good.
Right.
I'll be happy with that.
I hope this isn't your last project.
Oh, there's more. There's more. But
And
if it happens to be the last.
there's so much energy in this work that I can't imagine that momentum is going to fizzle out after the sixth issue. I have a feeling you're going to be rocketing forward with more.
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely.
Could you ever see a point though where, you know, you could see passing off the art to someone else and you just focus on the story, or you just focus on the art and pass the story to someone else? Or do you like having, both areas and working on it yourself?
Yeah, like the artwork, I would love to keep going at it,
Mhm.
but it is a lot of work, especially if you're trying to do like both. If I had to like stick with it, like I would like prefer to keep writing it in some ways.
Mhm.
But again, finding another artist, you can't just pick anybody, it has to fit the story itself. If it was with this particular story, I have to find an artist can definitely fit the style,
Mhm.
unless I do something totally different, of course. But I would definitely like to say like keep the writing on my end. But again, if there's someone who can understand the vision, I
Mhm.
think that's the main thing.
We we had a variant cover done by Bill Sienkiewicz, and
Oh, so good.
Vince was wide open to that. There was no resistance on his part to someone else
Yeah,
drawing.
I knew right away. Like I knew when Bill and he did the art, I just knew. Yeah, it'd be so fitting.
That's awesome. And Terry, for you, what is it about this story that you think is going to hook readers? What's different about what they're going to see in this book from what they might be seeing other places?
I think the very fact that it's taking archetypes and turning some of them on their heads, or showing their natural ending for an archetypal character that we're never going to get to see an ending of in their other regular continued series. And I also think and again, this surprises me so much that Vince didn't have all this storytelling experience before this going into it. Without ruining anything, it opens in a very human setting.
Right.
And it's a family that you see experiencing what it's like to live on this world of super beings
Right.
that far overpower them, and their reactions to those super beings, the events that happen to them. And then he goes from that scene, which I thought this was just brilliant buildup. He goes from that scene, which introduces the villain and just a normal family. And then we go to a scene which introduces one of the heroes, a beginning hero, really. And she's at the mall, and she's just trying to flirt with the girl that she likes. And she gets a calling and has to go off to deal with things. So he went from a sort of human experience in this superpowered world to one of the super beings who's very accessible and close to us in the sense that she's inexperienced with superpowers and how that affects hers. And then he takes us right to the really experienced superheroes and their base and all that. I just thought that was a really brilliant evolution in a way for the audience to get deeper and deeper in
Yeah,
without having to jump right on a giant supervillain superhero battle, which really is not relevant to most people's lives. Very few of us have lived through those.
yeah.
And Vince, for you, we talk a lot about creating the superheroes, but creating a villain, what was your thought process in making a villain that is a challenge for these, heroes that has something inside of them that, is a weakness to the heroes? How do you sort of put that villain together?
Oh, yeah, because it always goes back to like a great hero, you need a great villain.
Hmm.
Yeah, good examples like Batman. Like what makes Batman good is like the villains, obviously.
Right.
So it's almost like you gotta make what I find is when you get a good villain, it has to be almost again almost relatable. It's that sort of that other side, like what if I
Hmm.
was the villain type feel, so that you can almost understand where the villain's coming from,
Right.
as opposed to again same thing with the good guy,
Hmm.
right? So it's almost getting that balance. So like when I try to write, like I try to get like a theme going, especially with a story, but not just have the one character tell it. You almost have them have the same theme, but a
Hmm.
different way of doing it, or them approaching the theme differently.
Right.
Yeah, you in this case, your villain and your hero are motivated by very similar things. And the main
Yeah.
hero, they are motivated. No villain, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "What
Yeah.
evil can I do today?"
Yeah.
Doctor Doom wants to take over the world because he knows he can run it better, and less people will be hungry, less people will be homeless, etc. He has a motivation, and you have to have
Yeah.
a motivated villain.
Motivation, yes.
And they should always be more powerful than the heroes. And in this case, he's more powerful than all the heroes combined. And
Yeah.
it's because he's driven. He's really driven. It's not just his physical power. This is a guy who's driven. I'm not going to give away his motivations,
Mhm.
but he is really driven to succeed at his.
Yeah.
And Terry, for you, because you've worked on so many books, when you have a villain, there's certain villains you're going to see that are going to be a one issue villain. Like maybe they'll pop up way down the line. How do you know the difference between one that has legs to be somebody that can keep popping up and keep being a nuisance for the hero, and ones that are, fun for one book, but that's about it?
Sometimes you don't know that until you do the story, and
Mm,
you can if it's a new villain that's been created, the creators could end up telling a really full and complete story about that villain,
right,
and revisiting it would just be
right,
rehashing that villain. But a really complex villain, someone like Doctor Doom, etc., who has so many different motivations, there's
Yeah.
different ways you can come at that character every time. So
right.
he's worth revisiting.
Vince, in this world that we have now of Kickstarters and, creator-owned projects, for you, how has that experience been as, independent creator, and how do you sort of put yourself out there in a very crowded field of, projects that are coming out?
Yeah, yeah. The Kickstarter is a new one for me for sure.
Mhm.
And it definitely an experience, a fun one, but pretty crazy at the same time because
Right,
you're focusing on the book, but then you got to do the whole promotional part too. That's like a different thing as well.
right.
But not only are you doing promoting, you're not just posting, you're doing like, live streams, you got to do this for the whole social media stuff.
Hmm.
For me, it's like just, like for me, like obviously there's so many other people doing the same thing. And I try not to focus too much on that
Hmm.
and just tell people, hey, like this is the project and I hope you enjoy it. Right. And that's pretty much it.
I would
I
say,
think the Kickstarter thing's new for a lot of us. And
Yeah.
as anxious as I am to get on, I mean, I've read the issues 4, 5, and 6, the plots, but Vince hasn't started drawing them yet, and I'm really anxious to start seeing them be
Yeah.
drawn. But
I want to draw it right now.
yeah. And then there's a new word we learned earlier today. But in the meantime, Vince is being held back from being able to draw those because of he's being voluntold what to do,
Voluntold.
voluntold
That's our
what
new world. That's our new
wow.
Kickstarter
word.
campaign for the different reward tiers, etc.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
yeah, because we're drawing like they want me to like obviously there's like ideas of we're doing a card set
oh, okay.
that's part of the tiers, right? It was pretty neat when you see like they're like these metal ones,
Hmm.
but there's no other artist to draw it but me. So guess what? I gotta draw it. And I remember I drew the first set. I just drew. They wanted to care, so I drew it
Hmm.
and I gave it to Karen, who also part of the team of 24/7 Comics.
Right.
And then she messages me like, "Oh, Vince, we want it like this way." I'm like, "Oh,
Wow.
okay." Because
Wow.
I had them all like posing and ready to
Hmm.
fight, but they wanted them more just standing straight to make the card fit the other sets of cards from the other creators.
Right.
I was like,
But
"Oh, okay." So
Vince,
okay, all right.
Vince, didn't we talk about all the cards could be put together almost into a
Yeah,
poster?
yeah. Yeah, they
Cartridge?
were talking about that. And I think I was starting to create the layout, but then
Yeah,
they said like, "Oh, we're just gonna do this."
moved
I'm
away
like,
from.
yeah, so I'm like, okay. Like for me, honestly, like I'm not complaining. I'm just like whatever is needed for the campaign, I'll do it. Because like I just want everyone just to get into the Kickstarter and just see what's being developed, really. So whatever Carl wants, I'm like, yes, whatever you want, man.
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's a real vote of confidence for you that you're guaranteed 6 issues. Because for a lot of folks out there, they'll put out one issue. There's no guarantee
Mm,
they're going to be backed for the next book. So it sort
yeah.
of stops right there. So does that sort of, it's a little breathing room knowing, okay, I'm going to have the ability to tell the story I want to tell. I don't have to worry about if this one doesn't sell, I'm not going to be able to get the rest of the stuff out.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like I know like other creators do the one and they're kind of writing their story as they go and draw. That one, again, everyone's different, but for
Right.
me, I definitely wanted a beginning, middle, and end for sure. Like I just can't like just draw and hopefully see where the story goes.
Exactly.
Like even as putting this book together, the one thing is for me personally, like writing it and drawing it, I want to make sure I'm having fun drawing it.
Hmm.
So when you look at the book, like there's so many things happening, but it's all part of the story. But it's like I was telling Terry earlier, like I can't wait to draw. When I did the first issue, boom, I couldn't wait to draw the second one.
Right.
I couldn't, and I couldn't wait to draw the third one because the third one's like it takes place in hell, and it's like oh, and then the fourth one I can't wait to draw, and then the fifth one and sixth. But I did it in a way where each scene is something where every artist can't wait to draw.
Right.
But I'm making it fit though at the same time, part of the story as well. So
That's pretty neat.
And I think to your question, Oren, it's not only good and positive for the creators to know there's going to be 6 issues, but for the readers as well. They don't
yeah,
just invest in 1 or 2 issues and then the whole thing evaporates.
Right.
If they know, I think that's a really good element to the model of 24/7 comics because the readers know there's going to be 6 issues. One way or the other, you're going to get to the end of the story. You're not going to get the rug pulled out from under you.
yeah.
And for you, Terry, in this world now of these independent creators, the Kickstarters and stuff like that, is this the future of comics? Is this a threat to the big three, or is this an alternative to the big three?
I look at it as an alternative. I think anything that gets product out there that gets more people interested in comic books, wherever they come from, whatever door they enter through, is fine for everybody else.
Right. Now, Vince, you've had Bill Sienkiewicz do a cover for you guys, which is, I mean, Hall of
Oh,
Famer right there. It doesn't really get much
yeah.
better. If you had a dream team of folks to bring on board to do some variant covers, who would you have?
Oh
Ah,
man. I
I'm going to
mean,
take notes.
I mean, like, man, I'll mention the ones from my favorite comic book artists. Definitely up there is like Walter Simonson.
Mhm.
Like, like his stuff on Thor, like it's that thing, it's like it's very simplistic, but it's very powerful. And his take on Thor is like, I always tell people, just look the way he throws his hammer. Like it just takes up a whole page. Like it just blows away, right? And another one will probably be like Art Adams.
Can't
Okay,
go
Like
I
wrong with
imagine he's
I know there's many other artists, but there's like they're the ones like definitely an inspiration for sure, right? Because like especially with Art Adams stuff, like when I first saw his stuff, it's like, oh my God, it's so good, so detailed.
all right. I'm gonna reach out to both Walt and Art today and see if
Oh,
I can convince.
that'd be awesome.
That'd be very cool indeed.
You know who I also think would do a great cover for this character? Stephen Platt.
Oh man,
Yes.
yeah, he's another one too.
Yeah.
Stephen Platt. Oh,
See? Terry's got the Rolodex,
I know he does actually. I think any name I'll throw, he'll just throw them in there anyways.
But how cool is it as a fan though to see, other artists doing their rendition of your creation?
Oh, I love it. Like when looking at Bill's thing, it's like his take is just so good, but it's amazing when I see like other artists just doing their own take. Like it's not exactly mine, obviously, but it's always something when I love seeing different versions.
Hmm.
Like, because again, when you look at the cape, even the mask, like I know what's happening, but
Right.
sometimes some people don't. But it's always kind of cool to see how it all comes out. When you look at Bill's cover, like the way he even drew the cape, it was more like he just drew like lesser strips, but it
Yeah.
looked good. It was like so awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can see an image of it on the Kickstarter page, or you'll be
Yeah,
able to
yeah.
okay.
Bill's cover.
Yeah,
Now,
and his version's more slimmer too, but it still looks cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
Whereas Stephen Platt will do a really
More but
beefed up. Well,
It still look great though.
yeah,
oh
absolutely.
yeah.
Now, when does this Kickstarter end and how can folks get involved?
We should probably know the end date, shouldn't we, Vince?
Yeah. I believe it's June 27.
I think
That
so.
sounds right.
Yeah, that
Because
sounds right.
we're going to be at Heroes Con, Vince and
Yeah.
myself, next, oh God, this coming
Oh,
weekend.
this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be there, and then I think it ends right after the convention, the Kickstarter campaign, right?
I think I think we have a few more days after that.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
something close to that.
Because I know I have a live stream still and I think some other stuff.
Yeah, I have one more live stream as well.
Yeah.
And we're back. So yeah, man, this is pretty interesting how this is all coming together. Having Terry work with him has really helped. You know, Terry's one of the best out there as far as editors go, and it's only going to help craft this book and make it even better. They have 6 issues planned. It sounds like, you know, that's a good length for the story to come out, and I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys get involved with it. Vince, Terry, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Love to have you back to talk some more when, you know, this book keeps going and going and going. And guys, thank you for listening. And remember to like, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and we will see you on Friday.